There's been precious little cheer for many fruit growers along the River Murray in recent years. Drought, oversupply, poor prices and a high Australian dollar have squeezed the profits out of the wine, grape and citrus industries. But as Kerry Staight reports, while traditional fruit has fallen on hard times, a tropical tree is turning up trumps.
Like many Sunraysia fruit producers, Barry Avery has followed the typical route and grown wine grapes. But he's also taken an unlikely detour in a drought-prone region by investing in avocados.
They are a tropical fruit, and that you just have to accept the fact that what you're trying to do is really against what Mother Nature wants. You are really trying to grow a tropical tree in a desert climate.
And so far, it's the tropical fruit that has come out in front, prompting the Robinvale grower to gradually make the switch from grapes to guacamole.
Grape growing for the wine industry in this area is no longer viable. It's as simple as that. This year's Chardonnay, for example, will probably return growers between $250 and $300 a tonne. For a 10-tonne crop to the acre, it's a simple maths, it's $3,000 an acre. Avocados, if we don't return, I probably shouldn't be saying this, but between $15,000 and $20,000 an acre, I'd be extremely disappointed.
While the heart of Australia's avocado industry is in Queensland, the fleshy fruit, mainly the Hass variety, has got a following in some surprising spots right around the country.
Over the last 8 years, the industry's more than doubled in size, so gone from around 23,000 tonnes to just under 50,000 tonnes.
Downstream from Barry Avery's plantation is Nick Hobbs' orchard. Like the Sunraysia, the Riverland is classic grape and citrus territory. But this Renmark grower took the tropical track straight from the start, steering away from vines when his neighbours were investing in them. Did you think initially you'd made the right decision?
No, I felt like a real idiot. You know, I watched my neighbours plant and crop and get some really good dough, and for quite a few years wondered whether we'd done the right thing.
It takes around 5 years for avocado trees to produce a decent crop. One advantage in this drier region is growers usually don't have to spray for pests and diseases. But the big challenge is to keep the fruit from falling off during extreme conditions.
I refuse to leave if the forecast is over 35. You just got to be around, because if the pump shut down or something didn't happen, it could cost you a fortune.
You need cooling systems for the summer for our really hot, dry periods. You need frost fans for the winter time. You need very accurate irrigation monitoring equipment. Without those three items, don't even try it. It's too hard.
Barry Avery has spent 8 years fine-tuning the management of his orchards to improve the reliability and quality of his crops. As well as working out how to handle the heat and frost, new nutrition programs have been put in place. While he's happy with the results, he says the local industry needs to take a leaf out of some new books if it's going to mature.
What they do need to be doing now is to look at our other areas like South Africa and Israel, and with similar type climates to what we've got. Forget about what's happening in Queensland. It's completely different. They've got different soil types. They've obviously got tropical climate. We haven't got that.
And that's where Australia's leading avocado researcher comes in. Dr. Tony Whiley has been involved in the industry for 40 years and has spent the last decade tweaking trees so they're tailor-made for Australian conditions.
The Australian avocado industry, all through its evolution, hasn't really put a lot of effort into finding out what the effects of rootstocks or what they can have. Our nursery industry has largely sourced material through convenience rather than based on science.
Commercial avocado trees are produced by grafting a cutting from one plant onto the base of another. At the moment, a lot of the rootstock around the River Murray has Mexican origins and doesn't tolerate salinity. Dr. Whiley says West Indian and Guatemalan trees may create a better foundation.
We tend to put them underground, we tend to ignore them, but they can have an enormous impact on an orchard and its productivity well into the future.
Next year, he'll try and identify some high performers for Southern Australia by conducting a trial on Kym Thiel's Riverland property.
We need to find a rootstock that will handle potentially salinity management, etc., be frost tolerant maybe. So there's a number of unique Riverland factors.
So how long have you actually A decade ago, the productivity of an avocado tree was the last thing on Kym Thiel's mind, with nothing to pick but citrus.
On this particular property, we've got navels, all sorts of navels, early, mid-season and late. We've got some mandarins.
But the Waikerie grower, who also works for Citrus Australia, says right now there's far more gold in green.
At the moment, avocados still are significantly better from a gross margin point of view probably than any other crop that we could grow.
At least half of the family's land is now taken up with the tropical tree, a transition which takes a bit of getting used to.
They're extremely heavy water users, which obviously coming through the drought. It's a mindset where people have to get their heads around using 14 to 15 megalitres per hectare, whereas from a citrus point of view, on sprinklers they're probably back around the 8 to 10s.
This year, however, there is no shortage of water for River Murray irrigators. And no shortage of avocados.
We're expecting it probably to be, I'd say, 60% up on anything we've ever picked in the past, mainly due to last year's humid conditions, just mirroring what happens in Queensland, I guess.
I would think the crop is as good as I've ever had, and we had a pretty good one 10 years ago.
We're packing at least 3 times as much fruit this year as we did last year, or the previous 3 years.
Colin and Carol Fechner are among the earliest avocado adopters in the Riverland. They planted their first trees in the late 70s and now pack most of the fruit grown around Waikerie. This year's bumper crop is a dramatic turnaround after the drought, which tested the trees to the limit and forced some growers out.
3-4 years ago, when the midst of the drought, 2/3 of the property only had maintenance water to keep the tree alive, and like after that week of 40-something degrees, most of these trees here didn't have a leaf left on them, but they come back.
Hopes of cashing in on this mighty comeback crop, though, have been dashed by a big drop in prices.
Well, it's been incredibly destructive. An example, we export to Malaysia, Dubai and Thailand, and fruit that we were getting $24 a tray for shed door last year, we were getting $12 for this year.
In a 2-week period, the price dropped by over 1/3, and that's a significant amount when you're running a business.
Antony Allen, who heads the industry's peak body, says prices plummeted in September when the wholesale market was flooded with twice as many trays as predicted, with many coming from across the Tasman.
Avocados often go into an alternate bearing process, and the New Zealand on year, and their large year, is this year. They're at about 3.4 million trays, which is up from 2 million trays that they had last year. So the market needs to understand and absorb that amount of fruit.
While buyers may be enjoying the bargains, growers are angry, especially as the major supermarkets have switched to New Zealand avocados in some of the eastern states. While that is standard practice at this time of year, the industry says it's unnecessary this season.
Coles and Woolworths are on the record both stating that they have just under 97% Australian-grown fruit and veg in their stores. For avocados, that's an overstatement. In any given year, there'll be between 70 and 80% Australian fruit. It doesn't mean the Australian fruit's not there. It means that the way of sourcing that fruit becomes a little bit more challenging for Coles and Woolworths, and so they walk away from the Australian system and go to the easy system, which is dealing with 1 or 2 importers from New Zealand.
Well, that's not true. The reality is that we're more than happy to take local fruit, and indeed it's our preference when it is available in commercial quantities and that it's available in, with the quality specs that customers are looking for. So we'll be having a chat with Avocados Australia in the next couple of weeks to explain our requirements.
The advantage of the avocado over other horticultural crops is they don't really ripen until they're picked. So growers can respond to changes in the marketplace by slowing down their harvests or speeding them up. And with some New Zealand exporters last week deciding to slow deliveries into Australia's wholesale market, Barry Avery is hoping he'll soon be picking up the pace in his packing shed.
We would normally start our harvesting in the first week in October, maybe a bit earlier. We've really only just started now and on a very small scale, and that's because the price doesn't suit us. And with today's news that's come through, it looks like there will be a significant improvement in the market side of it.
Whether it's a temporary glitch or not, the market meltdown is ringing alarm bells. Because if the 2 to 3 year waiting list for avocado trees is anything to go by, there'll be a lot more fruit coming online in the future.
At the moment, we've probably got a citrus glut, we've had the grape glut, so the last thing we'd like to see is a product that is exceptionally well received in the marketplace be oversupplied.
Looking at the stats of trees in the ground, the stats of the amount of trees that New Zealand have put in, I mean, they currently only grow 4 to 5 million trays, and they have the potential to double that in the short term. Lots have gone into Western Australia. This district's up and down because of the drought, but production is climbing. If we don't grow consumption, then it's going to be a bit ugly.
Until now, consumption has kept pace with production, due largely to the significant amount of money growers spend on marketing. In fact, Australia eats more avocados per capita than any other developed nation. And the industry is confident there's still plenty of room on our plates for extra serves.
As an industry, we think we can more than double the consumption in Australia, and then we've got export markets that we've not even tapped into.
Most of the opportunity that I see available for Australia is in Asia, and it's a developing market, a big developing market, and they require mainly small fruit. And the problem that we do have in Australia is to try and move small fruit. Now, we've got a window of opportunity there, which probably goes for about 3 or 4 months before we have to compete with countries like South Africa. And last year we were displaced out of most markets in Asia with South African fruit.
More competition at home and abroad isn't scaring off this soft fruit lover. He plans to more than double production.
I wouldn't be expanding at the rate we are if I wasn't optimistic.
And judging by his patch of young mango plants, he believes there's room for a few other tropical trees amongst the vines too.